And please
All right.
take it.
Okay, great. My name is Erica Gap, and Katya reached out to me to see if I would help her get some homeschool curriculum together for the library. The library is putting together a section for homeschoolers so that we can, those of us who are homeschooling, those of us who are looking at homeschooling, those of us who are currently distance learning because of the situation we find ourselves in, there are extra resources at the library now for this kind of at-home school we find ourselves doing. I've actually been homeschooling since the beginning of time. And so I don't, she calls me a homeschooling expert, but I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom that's been doing it for a long time. So I've got 3 girls, one in 5th grade, one in 11th grade, and one that's graduated. She's already graduated from college. She's actually already married and out of the house. And my oldest I've homeschooled since she was in 2nd grade. So I've been doing it for a while, and I've homeschooled through high school and graduated her, and she made it to college. So, you know, it's doable and it's possible, and she actually got scholarships and all that. So, you know, it's all doable. But tonight, the idea was just to give a brief overview, nothing that's really too formal, but, you know, kind of give you guys a general idea of where to start for homeschooling. If you're considering homeschooling, where do we even go? Where do we even start? That's usually the biggest questions. People are completely overwhelmed with the options because even when I started homeschooling, there weren't that many options. And the people that I learned from were some of the first ones that had to beg and plead for curriculum. And the curriculum was only made for the school, and they had to beg and plead to have something they could use at home. And it was a lot more difficult. Now there's so much that actually we can spend the opposite amount of time trying to figure out what we want to do because there's so much available. So what I thought we would do is just to go through and for getting started purposes, just talk about where you start with homeschooling and how we even do that legally in the state of California. And there's 3 ways, and Katya, I don't know, do I advance this or do you advance this? Who's got control of the slides? Let's go to the next one. Oh, thanks. Okay. So in California, there's 3 ways to legally homeschool. You could go through a public charter, which is essentially you are still with the public school system. California has a huge system of charters that allow us to homeschool through the public school system, but they all work in different ways. So you'd have to do some research to find out the different charters. They all have a different charter, which is just like, you know, the 13 original colonies. They all had a different charter for what they were doing. So that is going to take a little bit of work to decide if you want to go on to a public school and figure out which one you'd like to use. I do hear though that a lot of them are full, mainly because this year with the transition between the pandemic schooling and everything that we've been doing the past from spring until now fall, that the funds have not been transferred with the students. So there's a funding issue with the charter schools, and a lot of them were not accepting new students. So that would take some phone calls, but essentially there's nothing you have to do except just enroll them in school because it's a public school. The second way to legally homeschool is to homeschool with a traditional private satellite program, which is a PSP. Those are private schools, traditionally brick and mortar schools, that do have their program is to support homeschoolers. So I know that there's like Christian Heritage. I think there's one called Grace Christian that's in the North County. There's a couple other ones. There's some that pop up all the time. I think there's a new one. Shoot, I forgot what it's called. There's a brand new one down in Chula Vista that is taking students, and that's where you would go to classes once or twice or 3 times a week for specific programs and take advantage of their teaching, but it still is supporting homeschoolers where you would do most of the work at home. So you have a choice of which classes you would take through them. Same with charter schools. If a charter school has on-site school classes, you can take classes through them on-site, or at least you were up until the pandemic started. And you could choose which classes you wanted to take on site as well. So you could do none, or you can do some. That's completely up to you. And then the third way is to be an independent PSP. How you do that is you would sign up and sign your own private school affidavit through the California Board of Education. And that comes up in between October and October 15th. You would sign the private school affidavit, and that, if you look at the link there, that's the link that would take you to the private school affidavit. That means, actually it's really easy to homeschool in California because there's not a whole lot of legality to it. They don't require any testing. They don't require for you to turn in any work or to use any specific curriculum at this time, but that can always change. So the independent, you are really beholden to no one. You don't have to turn in anything. You don't have to prove that you're homeschool. You just sign the affidavit, and really that's not giving you permission to homeschool, but what that is doing is the state of California just wants to get an idea of how many people are starting schools. So essentially, if you're an independent PSP, then your family, your house becomes a private school. And it's really easy. You just pick a school name. It's a one-page deal. It takes, 10 minutes to fill out. And there's nothing else to it. There's no money required or anything. Going back up to the charter schools, some of them do give funds for classes or for lessons or for sports and different kinds of things. The traditional satellite PSPs, depending on which one you choose, also they have different programs, like they might have choir, or they have sports sometimes, sports teams that can compete. They're all different. So there's just a lot available for you as a homeschooler to explore how you want to do this. Like I said, these are the 3 ways that are available. How available they are this year with the pandemic, I don't know. Like I said, I've heard a lot of the charter schools are not accepting people anymore. And I heard at one time that Heritage, for instance, the satellite PSP, that's a big one in San Diego, that was full for a while. And then I heard they're accepting registration again. So that would be something to check on as well. And that is how to homeschool legally. And then Katya, do you want to advance this one? In the slide. Essentially, the next slide says that we're talking about, things to consider if you're considering homeschooling and you are trying to figure out where to start. The best place to start is to ask yourself some good questions, and maybe with your whole family. This would be a good way to sit down and get the whole family on board to discuss and discover why you're homeschooling, what your values are as a family, how you want to go about homeschooling, and what your goals are for homeschooling. What is your end goal? Are you looking to just get through the pandemic? Do you want to get through the year? Are you looking to maybe homeschool through elementary school, or maybe through junior high and then go back to high school? Or do you want to homeschool for the duration and you're looking towards college later on? What are your end goals for homeschooling? But not only academically, but in every other way, with your family dynamic. Do you like to travel, or do you want to play more? Do you want to get outside and go hiking and camping? Or do you want to learn science from going out in nature and discovering it? Or, going to different places, learning history that way? Or are you more of a textbook kind of person, likes to read from a textbook or learn from videos? These are all things that you as a family would have to decide how you want to go about homeschooling. And that would drive the next side of the slide, which is the philosophies and approaches for homeschooling. There's lots of different ways, and there's lots of ways to mix and match. So traditional basically is like school at home. Lots of people start out, they really don't know what to expect or how to set it up. So they'll have the school desk and they'll have their school supplies and they have a schedule, and then they're much more rigid and they have a strict lunchtime. And so it kind of looks like school, except you're doing it at home. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is unschooling, where it's completely unstructured. And even within unschooling, there's variances of how that goes. There are some people that are just raise their kids completely wild. And then there's some people that It's not so much unschooling, but what they call directed schooling. So it's where the kids would choose what they want to study. They choose what they're passionate about or what they're curious about. And then you would dive into that. So, you know, if you have a child who is really into robotics, you could do all kinds of, you could gear your math around robotics and gear your science around robotics and gear your art and everything you want to do about robotics or horses or, you know, whatever it is that is your child's passion. You can build your school around themes like that, which kind of bleeds into unit studies. And unit studies, that's how they're built. Unit studies can be literature based, or they can be history based, or they can be based on a specific theme. There's lots of places to go for those kinds of things that have different themes. Like if your child really likes horses, you can build your entire school year, or even a semester, or even a month around a theme of horses. And you can do a unit study and have all of your subjects revolve around this one idea. Charlotte Mason is kind of a unit study based, but also a little bit more hands-on. And there is a huge following for Charlotte Mason style homeschooling that's very popular. And so you can look up, Google Charlotte Mason, and all kinds of things come up. Classical education is kind of a mix of all of that, where classical education will take into consideration the way that I'm a classical homeschooler. And so we take into consideration a trivium-based classical model where we incorporate the dynamics of how children learn. So to give you a general idea, in elementary school when they're young, they're very good at memorizing things. Typically, a typical child is very good at memorizing things. How they memorize like things from commercials, and they'll memorize things that you've said over time. That's how we learn our basic language, is by memorizing things. And then in middle school is where they're kind of fitting it all together. And then in the high school is where they're giving more output. So it's multifold. If you look at the way that our founding fathers were educated, that was classical. Lots of memorization in the younger years, lots of study of different cultures in the Western canons, and lots of literature based, and it's very academic. Eclectic is whatever you want it to be. It can be a mix of all different kinds of things. So for example, I have a classical model base in my homeschool that we go through a classical conversations, which is a program. But we also do a lot of I build my other subjects around what we're learning in our classical school. So it ends up kind of being a unit study sort of, but it's classical sort of. So the eclectic model, you're gonna just, once you get rolling with this, you go with what you want to do, and you can build it any way you want to. There's no set way or philosophy or approach that you have to go with as a homeschooler in California. Especially if you're independent. If you're homeschooling with a charter, that might be different. Depending on the charter, they might have more of a specific drive of what they want you to do. And they might want you to follow more with Common Core, for example, which you don't necessarily have to follow in other ways of homeschooling. Down here, there's a homeschool curriculum guide, which kind of shows you what I'm talking about. Hopefully it'll pop up. Maybe Katya got it. Sorry about my dogs. They were supposed to be elsewhere and tied up, and now they're just barking all over the place. But so this guide down here that I was adding has a lot of companies and places you can go for each area of these types of homeschooling areas. So hopefully it'll pop up, because it gives you a good idea of what's available and where to go, the companies that you can choose from under each style and philosophy of homeschooling. So some are easy. For instance, classical, like I said, I homeschool through Classical Conversations. We do have class days once a week. Charlotte Mason has a huge following, so that's an easy Google. They've got lots of stuff online. Unit studies are kind of a build it yourself. Any of these you can Google the terms and they'll come up. Let's see.
I shared the link, so maybe that will work.
Let's see. Oh, in the chat. Okay, let me see if I can pull that up.
Yeah, in the chat, can everyone select that?
Okay, I've got it up. Do you guys see that? If I have it up?
I think you need to put share screen. Can you select share screen?
Yes. Okay. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, it's a little small, but if you look up, it has traditional, it's got Abeka, Alpha Omega, Bob Jones, Bookshark, Calvert Church, Christian Light. Classical Education has a whole bunch of them. Classical Academic Press, Robinson Curriculum, Seton, Tapestry of Grace are really popular ones, and then Unit Studies. So if you're interested, we also have a Coronado Imperial Beach Facebook page, and this is on there. This came from the California Homeschool Network. So I'll talk about that in the next post, but this gives you a lot of places to go to start exploring different ways to homeschool, to kind of decide on what your philosophy is for homeschooling. Okay.
Are you ready for the PowerPoint again?
Let's go back to the other ones. I'll do stop share and see if that, okay, we're back.
One second.
There we go. Okay, so places to get help. The legality of homeschooling. HSLDA is a great, that's Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And there's the website right there, hslda.org. They're a great resource for everything legal about homeschooling. They cover the entire United States, and they actually cover international. So that's specifically even more helpful if you're military, because even if you are overseas, you can get help from HSLDA if you're homeschooling elsewhere. Specifically in California, CHIA of California is very good, and the California Homeschool Network with the CHN. These are all places you can go to for resources. CHIA has a lot of the legal information on there, but I'd always think that HSLDA is your best bet. HSLDA is a membership, and there's different places you can get a military discount from them. Different places have discounts with the HSLDA. I think, if I remember correctly, it was a little more than $120 or $100, I think, for the year, but that covers your entire family. So however many students you have. This will also help you if you have any legal need at all for homeschooling. If, God forbid, someone, an angry neighbor ever calls Child Protective Services or anything like that on you, and you have a legal question about homeschooling, they will protect you. So this is a good legal backing for anyone who's homeschooling, especially independent homeschoolers, because you don't have an umbrella. You don't have an illegal umbrella if you're independently homeschooling. If you're homeschooling with a charter, then HSLDA actually can't help you because you're underneath the charter school's umbrella. So that would be your legal go-to. You'd go to the charter if you ever had any legal questions. Everyone else, I would recommend checking out HSLDA and CHIA, I believe, or California Homeschool Network. One of those or both of those, I think they're voluntary. So I think they're free, but there's lots of information on all three of these websites. And then, like I mentioned before, we have a Facebook group here in town for Coronado and Imperial Beach homeschoolers Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook and you Google that, you can get on. There's lots of people that are willing and able to answer any question you have about homeschooling, especially here in California. And there's lots of information on there as well. We realize we've had that Facebook for quite a long time, and it just had a small group of people. And then when the pandemic hit, there were lots of people that wanted to join it. So we've got quite a growing group of new homeschoolers as well, that those of us who have been homeschooling for a while are willing and eager to help you out. So homeschooling is a lot of fun and it's really great, and we're always willing to help you. So there are other groups, other Facebook groups in San Diego. Some put together field trips. So there's lots of help out there. I would just do a Google search for homeschooling in San Diego and see what pops up, because there's lots coming up that's new. Some of them are going by the wayside because of the pandemic. So there's lots of changes. Anything I've put up here can change in an instant because of the pandemic and things that are changing sometimes daily with regards to legalities of homeschooling and schooling and everything else going on right now. So that's pretty much all I have to contribute to, from the slides. And so I'd like to open it up for question and answer. So if you guys have any, I'm willing to help answer questions if I can.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nellie?
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
thanks. My question is, so I have 3 kids. I'm just starting because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never homeschooled before, and my kids are 7th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old as well, so I'm a very seasoned mother. So I recognize that I also have a teaching background, so I do, not that I've used it in 20 years, but so I was very comfortable with not doing like a box curriculum.
Right.
And so, and just recognize, and I really appreciate, the fact that you ask questions like, what is the purpose, so that I can stay focused on that and not get stuck in the details,
Right. That's actually a good thing to write down when you get started, because sometimes we'll forget what the goal is, right?
Yes. I think it helps having the older kids. I realize that, all this stuff is really not that important.
Mm-hmm.
This grade is not that important. 1 year of anything.
Right.
They learn in spite of us. So no matter where they are or who their teacher is, even if it's at school, So anyways, my question is, so I'm going slow,
mm-hmm.
and just focusing on what is important to me, and actually that's our faith right now. So that's pretty much, we're doing faith and math, and I'm incorporating in that, writing and reading and everything. But I'm also doing a lot of research, and I'm going to be adding, as we go along and everything like that. I really like the idea of the Charlotte Mason and the classical. But I do not understand. This is my question. I'm sorry it's taking me so long. I do not understand how, when I look at the curriculum, how you would do 3 grades when one kid's learning American, one kid's learning the Renaissance or something, and the other one's learning Greek, history or science. I don't understand how you do it. So I don't understand that. And now I think to myself, well, okay, if I started in kindergarten, this would be a whole different story. Like if I'd started with them by the second time, it'd be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But speak to this. How do you do a one-room schoolroom at home and try to teach the classical or divide up? So right now we're all learning the same thing, and I just differentiate for the older and younger in the middle, at what their level is. So
yes, that's exactly it. So I really recommend, if you can, to decide on one. To decide on a theme, like this year you're going to do American history, or this year you're going to do ancient history, or this year you're going to do these things, and just meet each child at their level. So obviously you're going to work at a higher level with your high schooler. Your high school is probably going to work more independently and can work on bigger and more in depth on their projects. And then so you can start out in the morning doing the things that all of your kids can do together, and then you can break them up into their different levels. And there's going to be an element where sometimes you're just going to have kids waiting on you if they need your attention, and so it does become a matter of time management for them and for you, where you're going to have to, you will get your rhythm down when you do this long enough to where, okay, it looks like this child works best in the morning. And if I get them started on XYZ, then they're pretty good for the afternoon. Whereas this child tends to work later in the evening, and it's going to depend on the mix of your children too, their personalities. So one of the great things about homeschooling, for instance, is they can work whenever they want to. You know, like my high schooler doesn't get up until 11, but she does work. She'll sometimes be doing her homework until like 8 or 9, depending if she hasn't finished it, if she wants to sleep in, you know, so she can do that. But so
what you're telling me though is, because when I look at the well-trained mind, when I read the well-trained mind, it's got, you know, specific, and there's another one I got at the library. It has specific like curriculum for the grade. So you're saying you throw that out and you pick one, like even if it's not appropriate for you in second grade, you're going to learn American history. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I think is the easiest, especially if it's your first year homeschooling.
Yeah.
Because it's going to tax you as a teacher to have to meet the needs of these 3 levels. And so I recommend that. And like you said, they're going to get it later on. And the way that any good curriculum is built, you do basically teach these things at an elementary level, and then you teach them again a little bit more in depth in the middle school years. And then you really have at it in the depth and the, you know, diving deeply into how can they persuade with what they know in the high school years, right? So that's basically the classical model. So if you add Charlotte Mason to that, you're adding a little bit more, you're adding some activities, and you're adding some, maybe some lap books and some other hands-on type things to the method. But those things are going to be done at different depths for each child. So just for your sanity, especially because it's a weird year. I mean, I don't know if this would be my advice always and for every family, but if you're struggling to figure out how to do all these 3 different things, don't just choose one.
Okay.
Do it for the whole family.
Okay. I have more questions, but I'll let somebody else go.
Okay. But that was a good question, Nellie. Thank you.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm in my 3rd year of homeschooling. I chose the satellite. We're actually in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Homeschooling. So I have currently a 6th grader and a 4th grader.
Mm-hmm.
So my background is not teaching. Me and my husband are both truck drivers. So this has been quite an experience, to say the least, but a joyful one. They actually get to go with, like, my son gets to go with my husband quite often, gets to take his schoolwork with him, and it's pretty neat.
That's awesome.
Okay. So, but anyway, my question is math. The math to me is extremely difficult because I find myself having to spend time relearning math, and then I don't come up with any type of lesson plan. I'm just basically burning my brain to teach her, like especially 6th grade. Now we're in 6th grade math. So is there any help? Like I don't know how to build lesson plans. I guess that's my biggest thing. We're using the PACE Christian books. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but I just would love, I don't seem like I feel like I'm just doing what the book tells me to do. Like I feel like I need to be doing more.
Right. That's a great question. Math is one of those things, since every student is different, you can, and they learn differently. One of the great things about homeschooling is that you will redeem your own education. You know, it's sad that we can't teach our own children through high school when we ourselves went through high school. It's a little bit telling about, you know, how our education went, or at least what we remember from it. And so there's going to be an element of relearning that we're going to do as parents, because either it's been a long time and we don't remember, or we didn't learn it well the first time, which is possible as well. But if you're struggling in math, there's so much help in math. There are there's online math, like teaching textbooks is an online. They also have it in book form, but they do have an online curriculum that the students will do their questions after a video and then type in their answers, and it will tell them whether the answers are right or not. Saxon Math has DVDs that go along with it. There's even non-textbook based like Khan Academy, which is free. They've got some great math videos, and also a path where you can sign up as a teacher, and your student will start from wherever they test into and keep going on the path, and it will keep giving them successive videos to learn from, and then some problems to do. And then if they pass, they go on to the next one, and then it will send you a report as a teacher so that you know where your student is. So if that's one of the things you can struggle with, if you struggle with that, that's one of the things you can outsource easily in our video age, because there's a lot of digital help for math.
Okay, so the video kind of cut out with the, I guess maybe the free one. I guess I was
Khan Academy.
cut out with.
That one's Khan Academy, KHAN, and I think that's actually, I don't know. I think that might be Google based or a Google partnership. I'm not really sure. But they have a lot on Khan Academy that you can look at. And I think they're KHAN. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can check there. And there's a lot of math available for you.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I just have a quick question. If you have any experience, or if anyone does, sorry, my first grader's excited about something. So we are already enrolled with the public school here on the island. Hey, buddy, I'm trying to talk, okay, bud? And I'm considering jumping ship. So does anyone have any experience, or do you have any experience with, leaving?
With jumping ship.
And starting on your own? And it sounds like I might be in time for that date with
the homeschool affidavit.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the perfect time. And there's really nothing you have to do. You just would go to the school and say, I'm unenrolling my child, and that's it.
Okay.
And you don't have to show them anything. You don't have to transfer your records anywhere. I believe that you can get your child's records, that they can give it to you, especially if you are going to become your own PSP. They should be able to give you your child's records. That would be a great thing to look up at HSLDA as well, and or any of the other ones, the California Homeschool Networks. There's so many people doing that right now, especially because of the pandemic schooling. It's yeah, there are so many people, and the people who it didn't go so well in the spring when they tried it didn't even go back to school, and there's people who thought maybe this would get better in the fall, and it's not, and so they're deciding they're just gonna forget it. They're gonna forget this whole Zoom.
Yeah, it's just all the transition. And our family, we're military. I had a baby this year. Blah blah blah. With our family situation, I'm thinking if I can, make something more stable, I'd like to. So I've had friends homeschool, and I didn't ask them too many questions, but I know that they got funding from the state.
That would be through the charter schools, yeah.
Oh, through the charter schools.
Yes. So that might be, every once in a while I hear someone getting into charter school. So I think maybe they stopped enrolling for the time being, and now they may be opening up again. Okay. That's going to be a matter of picking one and calling them and seeing if they're available.
But if if I do it privately, then we're just self-funded.
Yeah, you're just self-funded, right? That's the unfortunate part. We don't get to use any of that money the state pays for the education that we would be using in school. We don't get that back. So
go to the charter. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So I would recommend starting and like I said in the slide part of it, just to go through and decide what your family dynamic is. You mentioned stability. Homeschooling is fantastic for military because when you move, you just keep going. There's no break. There's no problems with scope and sequence. There's no lost time. You just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I really like the flexibility of it. I mean, my older one is doing fine, and so I'll probably keep him with the schools here on the island. But my younger one, and I feel more confident with the material at that level. I feel like he's not learning anything right now. And so I'm just like, he's too young to hate school.
Yeah.
We got to do something about this. But so yeah, it's good to know that I have options, and that also as a military family, if we ever move to, no offense to anyone who might be from Mississippi, but you never know where you're going to get stationed and what the condition of the schools will be. So
Sure,
it's just nice to have that flexibility. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Will the slides be? I'm sorry if I missed the beginning. Are they available on the library website?
I believe this is going to be recorded. It will be available afterwards.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to post this recording on the library's YouTube page.
Okay.
And if you just right now Google Coronado Library Homeschool Resources, a link to our homeschool resources webpage on the Coronado Library website will come up, and on there you can search your catalog. We have a new collection of homeschool resources that you might find helpful. That includes some curriculum, and then my email is also on the webpage, and you can email me anytime, and I will put you right in touch with.
Watch me. I'm gonna play Minecraft.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And on that note, the library has the homeschool resources area right next to the parent shelves in our children's area. And we are.
And the library's open now. Yay!
So come.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, on that note, Erica, you were marvelous. I'm sure everyone agrees, and we're just very grateful to you. And I will follow up with the posting link, and you can post it on your Facebook page. Do you want to mention the name of the group that you post to, so that anyone here who hasn't joined it yet can join and stay in the know?
Sure, yes. We have a Coronado and Imperial Beach Facebook group, or I'm sorry, Coronado Imperial Beach Homeschoolers. You can search that, it will come up. And yeah, it's a great group that's growing with lots of people who are in all different stages of homeschooling and just helping each other out. We also have get-togethers every once in a while. We were meeting until classes started, and but if people want to get together, they're always asking for play dates and everything else.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and look out for the YouTube posting of this session on the Coronado Library's YouTube page.
Okay, thank you, Katja.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.